Number 17, meatloaf with tomato glaze and green beans. Millions of Americans have petitioned for In-N-Out to open near them. The demand is there. The money is there. But this chain won't expand everywhere, and the reason has nothing to do with ambition. Every patty is fresh, never frozen, and that promise quietly locks every restaurant within a few hundred miles of a company-owned distribution center. What looks like exclusivity is actually a supply chain with a hard edge. Every single beef patty arrives at the restaurant fresh. The company produces these patties throughout the week and delivers them directly to individual stores. Because the meat is never frozen, there are no cold storage vaults or freezer boxes sitting in the back of the kitchens. Most fast food chains keep stacks of frozen inventory to handle unexpected rushes or shipping delays, but this model rejects that safety net entirely. If a delivery truck is delayed, a store cannot simply pull backup patties from a freezer. This means the commitment to fresh meat acts as a strict operational law, governing daily logistics long before leadership even considers opening a new location. Every burger sold must fit into a tight schedule of production, transport, and immediate preparation. It is a rigid requirement that dictates the entire business model, turning a quality standard into a permanent geographic boundary. If the supply line breaks down, the kitchen simply stops serving burgers. The business operates without any margin for error, forcing every new restaurant to exist only where the daily delivery route can be guaranteed. In-N-Out bypasses commercial beef suppliers entirely by running its own meat processing facilities. Only 3 proprietary plants in the country produce every single patty: Baldwin Park and Lathrop in California and Dallas in Texas. At these hubs, fresh whole chunks of beef are ground, shaped, and packaged daily. The raw beef yield averages 72.9%, meaning almost 30% of the input weight is discarded to maintain exact fat to lean standards. At full capacity, these facilities output roughly 45,000 pounds of finished patties each day. Owning the process from start to finish requires compliance with rigorous USDA, Food Safety and Inspection Service regulations. Every facility operates under continuous on-site federal inspection, requiring strict hazard analysis plans and daily sanitation protocols. While this structure guarantees quality, it makes rapid geographic growth incredibly difficult. Most fast food brands scale by purchasing frozen patties from third-party networks to bypass local production limits. In-N-Out cannot do this. To enter a new territory, the company must build its own regional distribution hub and patty plant from scratch. This is an undertaking that costs up to $20 million in capital and requires months of regulatory approvals. For In-N-Out, opening a new restaurant acts as a direct manufacturing commitment, far more complex than standard commercial expansion. Once a company decides to own the entire production chain, the physical distance between the processing table and the restaurant kitchen becomes a hard operational limit. Federal safety regulations state that a commercial truck driver can spend a maximum of 11 hours behind the wheel within a 14-hour window. On an open interstate, 11 hours covers roughly 600 miles. But when the cargo is raw, unpreserved ground beef, the operational limit shrinks. Under United States Department of Agriculture guidelines, fresh ground beef must be cooked or disposed of within 48 hours of production. Because the company refuses to freeze its meat, every patty is locked in a race against this narrow chemical window. Inside the insulated trailer, refrigeration units must maintain a continuous temperature of 34 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. This turns the delivery truck into a ticking clock and the route driver into the frontline guardian of quality. The legal limit begins ticking down during the loading process, long before the truck reaches the highway. Mountain passes, metro traffic, and the manual unloading at multiple store locations eat into those 11 hours. To absorb these real-world delays, practical route planning caps the one-way trip at a strict 8 hours of active driving. At typical highway speeds, 8 hours translates to a hard boundary of 440 miles. If a new market sits 9 hours away, the logistics break down.
the patties would age, the cold chain would risk failure, and the driver could not legally make the return trip before running out of hours. In this system, freshness is a physical delivery ceiling that cannot be negotiated.
To make this 8-hour delivery ceiling work, the company relies on regional distribution centers. These hubs are the physical anchors of the entire operation, dictating exactly where a restaurant can exist. If you look at a map of locations, they do not spread out in a continuous nationwide grid. Instead, they appear as distinct, highly concentrated clusters. Each cluster represents the outer boundaries of a distribution center's reach. In Southern California, the Baldwin Park facility acts as the core. For Central California, Arizona, and Nevada, the Lathrop hub manages the flow. In Texas, the Dallas facility serves the surrounding markets. Every single storefront is tethered to one of these regional nodes. This setup means that the company cannot simply open a one-off restaurant in a high-demand city like Seattle or Miami. Without a local distribution center to supply fresh ingredients daily, an isolated store is structurally impossible. This infrastructure placement turns an invisible operating philosophy into a highly visible geographic map. Before a single burger is flipped in a new territory, the supply network must be built. The distribution center must be positioned first, establishing the hub before the spokes can extend. Because of this, expansion is not a matter of public interest or real estate availability. It is an exercise in heavy infrastructure. The footprint grows only when the company constructs a new multi-million-dollar anchor to support a new family of stores. This repeating pattern of clustering around dedicated hubs is the structural reality that governs where the brand can and cannot go. The historical timeline of In-N-Out's footprint serves as physical proof of this logistical constraint. For the first 44 years of its existence, the company remained strictly within California. When expansion began in 1992, it did not leap across the country to cash in on national demand. Instead, the chain stepped carefully into Nevada, followed by Arizona in 2000. Both states sat just close enough to be fed by the existing California hubs. The first major step occurred in 2011 when the company entered Texas. This move was only possible because In-N-Out built a brand new patty plant and distribution center in Dallas first. Oregon followed in 2015, drawing from the northern reach of the Lathrop facility. Each new entry, including the recent expansion into Colorado and Tennessee, occurred only after the physical support infrastructure was fully operational. This slow, deliberate sequence shows that geographic growth is never dictated by real estate availability or consumer petitions. The map of In-N-Out's expansion is simply a record of where the company has finished building its supply chain. Outside the current footprint, consumer demand is undeniable. Online petitions gather thousands of signatures begging the chain to open in Seattle, New York, and Chicago. When temporary pop-up events open in these unserved cities, lines stretch for blocks, with some customers waiting hours for a single burger. Florida officials actively lobbied the company to expand east, only to receive a polite refusal from leadership. Competitors scale rapidly across continents by shipping frozen patties that can safely sit in freezers for weeks. In-N-Out rejects this shortcut. The restricted footprint represents a deliberate operational choice rather than a lack of market interest. Ultimately, the geographic boundaries are drawn entirely by the physical limits of fresh logistics, prioritizing strict quality control over rapid nationwide growth. Today, In-N-Out's map remains a physical testament to logistics, not popularity. By tying growth directly to the strict limits of its cold chain, the brand proves that protecting a promise is more valuable than capturing every market. What do you think of this strategy? Share your thoughts below.